community that bans books and bans education. And a lot of times when you learn in schools where people have bought into the idea that we don't want to learn about other people, when people like me come along and we have actual history and information that is superior to your knowledge, it sounds stupid to you because you participate in a culture largely that refuses to learn things. The rest of us, we don't have that luxury. We have to learn things. We have to learn actual history. So it might sound stupid to the unlearned, but this is a show for the learned class and those who desire to learn. Does that make sense, Larry?
No, it doesn't make sense. People have the internet. You can learn anything you want.
Oh, so Larry, now Larry, I'm so sorry for you. You know that the internet it's a starting point, right, hon? And it's based on algorithms. So it's not really a learning space. It's a data gathering space. Learning happens in non-algorithmically based in spaces. So I'm going to explain this to you. I'm going to try not to use words that are too multisyllabic. Oh, damn it, I just did. But the internet is based on algorithms. So the first time you go onto the internet and you type in something, you teach the internet algorithms what it is that you want to know. You teach them what types of things that you like. And then the internet algorithms send you more of that content. Now, if you were researching, if you were learning, you would go into, say, a library where the information is not curated to make you comfortable and to make you feel a little bitter about what you're learning. The information exists, whether you like it or not. And in a library or a bookstore even, you would be able to go out, seek out information you agree with, information you disagree with. You would do a thing called fact checking, which is to say that you would not only read one article, you would look at what sources of information the author of the article used in the article, and then you would go check and see if those sources were valid sources. So the internet, as soon as you say you can learn anything on the internet, I worry about the quality of your education, Larry. How are you feeling?
I'm just listening to this nonsense. Like, you sound horrible. Like you're going to promote a race war if you keep talking like you're talking.
Wait, how, Larry? By telling the truth about American history? Did you not know that white people had affirmative action called the Homestead Act? You didn't know that?
Did you not know white people were also enslaved and so were the Chinese?
So, Larry, I got to be honest with you. I really am appreciating this call because this is I kind of thought you were going to say something like that. And so I reached into my memory database, which is full of information that I have learned in non-internet driven spaces. And so when we talk about white people being enslaved, what you're really talking about is indentured servitude. And indentured servitude, which quite frankly had white billionaires not interrupted the natural course of things, white indentured servants who would leave from England or from wherever they were living at in their European homelands, which were plagued with all sorts of plagues and destitution and poverty and lack of hygiene and no soap and lack of literacy. And they would contract with corporations, and those corporations would give them free passage from their homelands to the new land. They would work for about 5 to 7 years under a contract with colonial powers like the colonial power of Virginia and so on and so forth. And then they would be able to be freed. And when they were freed, they would also get a plot of land, some seeds, and they would get to farm. So what you like to call slavery really demonstrates a lack of your own history and lack of knowing. The mind is a terrible thing to waste, Larry. And so those white people, they weren't slaves. They were indentured servants. However, there was enough similarity between their working conditions on those plantations that there was a lot of effort to collaborate between white indentured servants and black enslaved Africans. And there was so much effort because there was a recognition, hey, I'm poor and being taken advantage of. You're enslaved and being taken advantage of. Let's work together. And do you know what the wealthy white people did, Larry? And you should check non-internet sources for this, but if you Google it, it'll also come up there. But what those white wealthy people did was they would create laws that said poor white people who were indentured servants and enslaved Africans could not communicate. They would create laws and punish white people who wanted to coalesce with black people to work for the shared interests that both of those groups had. And in fact, we saw this persist even up through enslavement and into Wilmington, North Carolina, where there was this amazing post-enslavement era of interracial collaboration and cooperation where poor white people, formerly enslaved Africans were working together. And Larry, they weren't just working together on projects to make their communities better. They were organizing together. They were doing the work of of creating an electoral pipeline that was going to get people elected into office, not white people or black people, human people who were going to pass policies that were going to benefit all of them. And do you know what the wealthy white people did in that moment, Larry? They came in, approximately 200 of them on horseback, and they drove those Fusion Party electoral members out of office. They murdered a lot of the black people, and they told the poor whites, never again. And this is something that we see throughout the enslavement era. And you can check between the 1600s, where we had Bacon's Rebellion, which I'm going to also explain to you. Bacon's Rebellion was a moment in early Americana history where white people who were poor and black people who were enslaved were fighting together. Now we can quibble about the goals that they were trying to reach in this effort, because Nathaniel Bacon was not a good guy, and you probably don't know him, so I'm going to just keep explaining to this. You can Google that or look it up at your local library later. But they were working together, and they worked together so well, they were able to almost overthrow the colonial power of the colony of Virginia. And then they began implementing even more rules that said poor white people cannot ever, no, never work alongside with black people who are enslaved, because there's too much commonality that they have in their shared economic interests. And this is why, Larry, now, you sound a little aged, so you might know this quote from Lyndon B. Johnson. Do you remember Lyndon B. Johnson, one of the presidents of the United States? Well, one of the things he had to say about people like that is that he said that if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice he's picking your pockets. Hell, give him someone to look down upon and he'll empty his pockets for you. Now, you may not know this, but Lyndon B. Johnson was a white man, and he was able to determine that, unfortunately, because white Americans who are poor have been convinced that for some reason, without metrics, without data, without any truth to it, that they are better than black people, they will happily allow themselves to be taken advantage of. They will be snookered by presidential candidates who will say crazy, outlandish things like, I'll end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours, until he gets elected and then walks it back and says, it'll take 6 months. They will get snookered by white candidates who will come in and try to get their votes by saying things like, well, I don't know. Let's see. What are some things that Donald Trump promised poor white people that made them get really excited? Not just that he was going to end the war in Ukraine. Oh, that's right. He was going to get rid of all the immigrants, because all the poor whites were upset about all the immigrants. But then he got into office and was like, no, those poor whites, sorry, the brown immigrants are actually smarter than you, because they come from schools that are better than you. They come from countries where they do better work than you. So we're going to keep them. And so it's easy to fool people who don't know things, which is why candidates like Donald Trump will say things like he loves the poorly educated, because you're so easily snookered and you don't read. Larry?
Average person, especially a group of people, you can lie to them bold-facedly and they're going to believe you.
I don't know what
they
that's
don't read, they don't fact check, they don't do anything.
Yeah, that's what I said.
That's what I'm saying. Until people stand up for what they believe in, stop the racism, stop all the BS, get a damn job and just live their life.
Well, you called into one of my jobs, Larry. You called me. You called me while I was doing exactly that. And now I know it's a little difficult. You're kind of kerfluffled, and I get it. It's hard, because the reality is we're not promoting racism by talking about racism. That would be sort of like telling a cancer doctor or a doctor who focuses on cancer that the mere discussion about cancer is going to make the cancer worse. That's just not how this works. Now, it makes you feel better when we don't talk about these things. But like I said, I'm grateful to the Bill Aikmans and the other white billionaires of the world who are doing nothing but talking about racial issues, because it allows us to have an honest conversation and dialogue. Now, Larry, we got to let you go because there are other people on the line. I encourage you to get a library card. I want to encourage you to take some courses that are going to teach you what research looks like. They're available. You can do those online from a credible institution, not Prager, but a credible institution. But I really encourage you to do some more study, to do some more listening. You're going to be okay. After all, you're still white. You'll be fine. Thanks for calling.